Hey everybody, and welcome to the first official episode of Vampires, Werewolves, and Hunters Oh My. Today we're going to be discussing the mid-season finale of the Vampire Diaries. The episode, entitled 50 Shades of Grayson, aired early December, and since then the show's been on winter hiatus until January 23rd, when we get the first episode of 2014. Let's start off by talking about what happened between Elena and Dr. West during the episode. When we last left Elena, she was about to become the latest test subject, or Subject 83182. Dr. West is on the verge of injecting Elena with the Ripper serum, and Elena is sort of finding out where her father, Grayson Gilbert, fits into the Augustine vampire. Grayson Gilbert was one of the head scientists working on the Augustine Vampire Project. Early in the season, we find out that Megan, Elena's college roommate, has a photo with her father, and Elena is very curious to figure out why. In this episode, we actually find out how Megan knew Grayson Gilbert. Grayson Gilbert's hope with the Augustine Vampire Project was not to turn vampires into vampire-feeding monsters. Simply, he wanted to find a way to use vampire blood to cure diseases that humans had. Megan was born with heart disease, and Grayson Gilbert actually managed to cure her of that disease. When Megan started poking around wanting to know more about what saved her, how she came to be cured of the heart disease, she stumbles upon the Whitmore house and Enzo. When Megan comes across Enzo, Enzo kills her, and that's how the whole season starts to unfold. Before Dr. West is able to completely inject the serum into Elena, who should arrive but Stefan, there to save the day. Aaron, the young man who is being cared for by Dr. West, has given up the Augustine vampire journals to Stefan, has denounced his connection to Dr. West in any way, shape, or form, and has helped Stefan successfully find Elena and save her from Dr. West. Let's discuss what happens between Stefan and Katherine in this episode. The two end up having a hot and steamy one-night stand, and Katherine hopes that this means Stefan will forgive her for everything that she's ever done to him in the past. Unfortunately, Stefan isn't ready to forget everything that Katherine has done to him and Elena and Damon over the past 140 years. Katherine is absolutely distraught over this, but she's determined to win Stefan over. As we know, Katherine is now aging and dying very rapidly. She's hoping that by coming to a strict diet and doing daily exercise routines with Matt, that she'll prolong her life a little bit. So during this season, we find out that Nadia, the Traveler, is in fact Katherine's daughter, who was taken from her immediately after birth back in the 15th century. Nadia has this idea they can save Katherine's life by using the Traveler's knife to take her soul and put it into another body, the same way they did with Enzo's soul when they put that into Matt. Katherine doesn't want this. She immediately turns down the idea. She just wants nothing to do with it. She's already stated she wants nothing to do with Nadia. So Nadia decides, to pack up and leave, but she leaves the knife with Matt before she takes off. After Katherine is rejected by Stefan, she suddenly becomes desperate. She contacts Nadia in the hopes that they can still figure out how to make the Traveler's knife idea work for her. Again, unfortunately, Nadia's already gone, and Katherine suffers a heart attack while she's on the phone with Nadia. This is where we leave it with Katherine. Katherine is dying. Nadia is who knows where at this point. So we have no idea what's going to happen with her until we see the new episode on the 23rd. So as you know, Dr. West, he has Elena. The one thing he wants to do is keep Damon away from Elena. because he wants to be able to finish injecting her with the serum. So what does Dr. West do other than release Damon's good old buddy Enzo from his cage in the basement? Dr. West tells Enzo he will give him an antidote for the serum he injected him with, if and only if he kills Damon. So we get to a scene where Damon is confronted by Enzo, and Damon is just kind of forced to relive his past and to kind of remember what he did back then. Damon and Enzo were both subjects that were being experimented on for the Augustine Society. They had both been trapped in cages in the basement. They were brought out at parties as kind of like entertainment. People could view the vampires through the bars. They became friends. There was this horrible event that they were both going through that they managed to bond over, which is great. Damon had a friend then. So we get to the night that Damon manages to escape. There's a party. They bring the vampires up from the basement into their cages. But Damon has found a way to get out of his cage and starts to feed on everyone in the room. He is, obviously incredibly thirsty and angry, and this is him taking revenge. A fire is accidentally started, somebody probably knocked over a candle as they're running about, and Enzo is waiting for Damon to free him. Only come to find out that Damon has no intention of freeing Enzo, and instead leaves him there to burn. Now, as we know, Enzo is alive and well as you can be when you're being experimented on, I suppose. And this is where Damon starts to, realize what a monster he was back then, and he starts to believe that he's still that monster now, which is, it's really crushing to his personality now to remember the way things were back then. So, that's kind of where we leave Damon in this situation is he's forced to confront a past that I'm sure he'd rather forget. And now we kind of just have to see how that affects him throughout the rest of the season. So we're at the point now where Stefan has rescued Elena and Damon has confronted Enzo and his past. With Damon in a place right now where he feels like he's still the monster he was then, now, this is really causing a strain on how he feels about his relationship with Elena. He doesn't feel he's right for her, and he doesn't want to turn her into the monster that he thinks he is. And this is one of the hardest scenes that any Elena fan has had to watch. Damon tells Elena that he's letting her go, thus ending the relationship with her. After all the time that he was in love with her and he wanted to be with her, he finally has the girl. Fate just does not want these two to be happy. I don't know if it's the writers going along with the idea that the doppelgangers will always be together, aka Stefan and Elena, or, if they're just trying to drive fans crazy. I don't know. I was incredibly sad to see this breakup happen. I've always been rooting for Delana, and I'm sure I'm not the only fan who was blown away by the breakup in the mid-season finale episode. So for the mid-season finale episode, 50 Shades of Grayson, I'm going to give the episode 3 out of 5 stars. It was a really entertaining episode. I love that we finally kind of got to know a little more about Elena's family, and we now know what Gilbert Grayson had to do with the Augustine Society. We have the breakup between Elena and Damon, which is really sad and was really hard to watch, and so, that's kind of nice. At the same time, I kind of feel like this episode, it was hard to get through, It dragged on. I really feel like parts of the storyline at this point are just becoming a little boring and a little stale. You know, there comes a point where you kind of get tired of seeing the same constant breakups happening. You know, it's either Elena and Stefan or Elena and Damon. I kind of wish they would shift focus to, you know, some other characters on the show. You know, a little more between, you know, the friendship that we see forming between Nadia and Matt. You know, maybe more on Katherine, less on Elena. You know, regardless, I did have to only give it 3 stars. It wasn't the best episode I've ever seen. I am hopeful that the 100th episode is going to, you know, be really great and reinforce, you know, my belief that this is a wonderful show. So, on January 23rd, we get episode 11 of season 5. The episode is entitled 500 Years of Solitude. On this episode, it's going to be all about Katherine. There's going to be a lot of flashbacks to Katherine back in the 1400s, a lot of discussion between characters about infamous Katherine moments, as well as them all coming together to try to find a way to save Katherine. Another big thing to know about the episode that is about to happen is it is officially the 100th episode of the Vampire Diaries. This is such an amazing occasion, and I'm so excited to celebrate it with you guys after the episode airs on the 23rd. So be sure to come back for the next episode of Vampires, Werewolves, and Hunters Oh My, as we have a huge celebration for the 100th episode of the Vampire Diaries. Next time on Vampires, Werewolves, and Hunters Oh My, join us as we recap episodes of Being Human, Supernatural, and the originals. Be sure to join us next time as well for our 100th episode celebration of the Vampire Diaries.